Welcome to the summer edition of the weekly show with Jimmy and Joe, where we talk about leadership always because we believe it is always about leadership. We are thrilled today to have as our guest Dr. Brad Gustafson. Brad is an award-winning principal from Minnesota. He's a best-selling author, speaker, and avid reader. He understands the critical role leaders play in creating the conditions where everyone in a school can be successful. Brad's newest book, The 6 Literacy Levers, is a practitioner-friendly guide to leading a culture of reading from anywhere in your school or organization. Brad also wrote his other book, Reclaiming Our Calling and Renegade Leadership. All of Brad's books are built on the belief that everything we do starts with relationships and connectedness. Brad co-hosts a weekly web series called Read This Now, where he talks about literacy and shares book recommendations with fellow literacy leaders. He has served on the Scholastic Principal Advisory Board and has been a national advisor with Future Ready School for several years, where I am proud to call him a colleague and partner in that arena. Brad was also recognized as a NSBA 20 to Watch and named Minnesota Principal of the Year in 2016. His school has been recognized at the local, state, and national level, from classrooms to the boardroom and everywhere in between. Brad is helping educators own their influence. Welcome, my friend, Brad Gustafson. And I have to do this, Brad. I know we practiced it before we got live on the air, but here it comes.
Oh! Jimmy, I'm glad you read the bio because a lot of people were probably looking at the screen thinking, geez, Joe Sanfilippo started working out. They're like, Joe's taking up exercise. So no.
Oh, and you look so much better, Joe. I don't know, this whole reincarnation, Joe, the hair, the glasses, I mean, your body. I mean, it's been an amazing transformation, Joe. I mean, Brad. No,
I love it.
Absolutely. No, this is our summer series where we're taking some time to hear from some practitioners in the field, and we're honored to have Brad here with us today. So, Brad, before we get started here, let me just say this. I've had the opportunity to work side by side with Brad. I've had the opportunity to learn from Brad. I've had the opportunity to watch Brad. And I'll say this, and Brad, I've said this to you before, I think privately, I don't care who I talk to, it's going to be really hard to find someone as sincere and as genuine, as nice as Brad Gustafson. And I mean that. So you're amazing. You're an amazing friend. You're an amazing colleague. And I'm just so honored and proud to know you, my friend. So
that's very nice of you to say. The respect
one of the nicest people you'll ever meet.
I'm glad you said the summer edition a second ago, because for a second I literally forgot we were recording. I'm just ready to talk to you now. But here, we can still have a great conversation. But thanks for the reminder that we're doing a show here, Jimmy.
That's right, we're doing a show. So let's get right into it, Brad. So we're going to kick off. So, Brad, take our audience on a journey and tell us how you ended up being a school leader. Tell us that story.
All right. So here, a couple salient points here. I remember student teaching, and just funny story. I almost wasn't sitting here, Jimmy. I'm helping kids in the computer lab. It's 4th grade class, and what we do. You go up and you kind of do this thing. You put your hands on your knees, and I'm helping this kiddo, and I'm getting sore just from that posture position. So I look for a chair that's kind of ditched in the corner of the room, and I slide it over because evidently my teaching wasn't as clear as I needed it to be. And it was just taking me a while to explain something. So I sit down next to this kid and start helping with the computer again. All of a sudden the chair collapses, just crashes out under and goes everywhere. So I'm laying on my back on the floor, I'm feeling like partially hurt, wondering like, am I okay? Do I have a head injury? And then immediately I'm like, oh my God. Like I was just embarrassed because the 4th graders are looking, teacher comes up and kind of gives me a pep talk or helps me up or wonders like, who is this guy? So I pretend that didn't happen. And I go back to helping this kid, realizing why the chair was off to the corner, right? Like don't use that chair. So I'm doing that thing again with my knees, because obviously there's not a chair. So I have my hands on my knees again. My rear end is sticking out just a teeny bit. I'm helping, and then all of a sudden the mentor teacher comes up to me and kind of whispers in my ear, Brad, the back of your pants are split. So not only had I embarrassed myself that once,
Brad, it's one disaster after
yeah,
another.
so stuff like that, and I've just got a series of this stuff that's happened, but I almost had to give up education and not go back the next day just because of that mess. But honestly, Jimmy, the real reason I'm here, I think, like the journey that you asked about, it's just people who took time to invest in me or see things in me maybe that I didn't recognize, or to help me polish up things. And one in particular, my first principal who hired me, Jan Fisher, she came in after a few years into the room and just gave me a flyer and said, "I think you'd be good at this." And it was to principal school. And initially I thought, like, am I doing something wrong? Am I not doing a good enough job? It hadn't occurred to me that the leadership and culture and things I cared about in the classroom maybe could translate or help or support in a different way or a broader way. And I've always tried to carry her example with me and look for people around here and just let's see how can I help them, just in case, like me, they're not thinking that way, in case they want to or might be interested. So
yeah. Brad, I'm laughing because I love the fact that you're sharing this story, but you have to give me the visual. So you have to not once but twice stand up and show me what the squat looks like. It was pretty impressive, by the way.
I know.
And I'm impressed that you could still get back up and stand up straight after that. I mean,
and then at the end of I had to obviously untuck my shirt the rest of the day just to hide the fact that my jeans were my pants were air conditioned. So then later on, I met the principal and they, introduced me, and I'm sure she had heard about the situation. She was very gracious, but I just felt like a slob. My shirt's untucked. I feel like I'm lucky to be standing here right now.
What just happened, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Brad, let's transition here and talk to us a little bit. And are you willing to share a challenge that you faced during your career that made you question whether or not you could continue doing the work of a school leader? Because I think we've all faced those challenges at some point or another. Talk to us a little bit about a challenge that you may have faced that said, I'm not sure if this is really for me after all, or just was, just put you through some trials and tribulations.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, one recent one, Jimmy, is this past year, things have been really hard with the pandemic and kids' social emotional needs, and just where what they're needing, and everyone's needing something different, but then also their tolerance and even families and probably staff and my own ability to show up and just be as patient as we would like to, it just is a little bit different in this day and age. So going through that the last couple of years, but then couple that with not having enough people to cover classrooms, that was really hard for our whole team. So, you get to school and you want to serve, you want to lead, you want to grow capacity, you want to create safe conditions, all the things. But when you don't have enough people to literally do that, it just is really, really hard on everyone, not just myself. And part of that challenge is seeing other people struggle. That is hard. You kind of wear that, or you care about it. And I remember, like, after a month or two of school last year, I just thought, this isn't gonna work. We got to do something. So we met in the gym and kind of spread out, because that's the situation we were in with where the pandemic and distancing and stuff. And we just named the situation. We named what was hard, and we said, we want to hire and have enough subs so everyone can be gone when they need to be gone, to take care of their family, to take care of themselves, so that they're not, at home and thinking about,
the guilt or whatever.
Or so they're not compromising their family and staying at school when they need to help with something else. So nothing, this was all a team that put this together, but we came up with contingency plans, like grade by grade, and it was personalized by the staff and the team. It wasn't a school-wide approach. We just all worked together on it. And so then, as we had people gone this year, we kind of went to that playbook. And of course, we still tried to fill the positions, but some grade levels, it was splitting up some kiddos, dividing in emergency situations. And obviously we had some subs, so it wasn't always doing this. I don't want to portray that either. But also, I remember always trying to lead with, is this genuinely okay with you, teacher, whoever that might be? Because if it's not, and if you need your prep, which of course they need more prep than we even give them, we wanted to honor that too, and not have some false pressure, like,
Mhm.
fake choice, if you will. So it just
Yep.
felt really good to work together on that and to survive together. And we got through, like, crawled across the finish line, Jimmy, and that was hard work on everyone. And I don't think our school or district or state is alone in that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would agree that that challenge is not unique to your school, but it was everywhere. And but what I love about it, Brad, is that you took another risk, right, to bring a whole staff into a whole gymnasium or whatever the large space was, right? Because we also know those can go south quickly as well, right? Go sideways on us. But I think the reason it didn't is because you were genuine, you were sincere, and you give people a voice, and you gave them the ability to make some decisions, and it wasn't fake, and it wasn't real, and they didn't feel that pressure. So I think that contributes to what your current state of your culture was in, to be able to do that. And that's the thing I think sometimes people miss, is that sometimes those things don't work if the culture isn't ready for that type of conversation. So in a way, you can feel really good about that because your culture was ready for that and they could come together and have those conversations. So I love it.
Yeah, I think there's, like, just being hyper reflective. There's been an evolution in just my own journey as a principal, where I think probably subconsciously I might have said out loud, I don't need to know everything, but I think internally I was really trying to have all the solutions, or just to appear competent on
Mhm.
some level. But now it's like, all I need to do is listen and learn and hear problems and pain points and things, and then get the team together and have processes to have people feel heard, and then kind of ideate together and create the conditions for that. And I mean, if we're being really honest here, really, really honest, the solutions that a staff comes up with are way better than what one person could ever do. So it's been a really cool thing.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Good to hear that, my friend. So, all right. So, talk to us then. If you could go back, then, Brad, and do one thing differently in your career that you think would lead to a better outcome, what would that be?
Yeah, I think one of the things I would do would listen differently at conversations, whether it's an IEP meeting or parent meeting. I think a lot of times I went through the motions, and probably thought I was doing a good job. I mean, I showed up and I genuinely cared, but I just wasn't as skilled at, like, living out the care and what the other person needed. Quick example. So I'd go to IEP meetings and I'd hear families, and this is going back many, many years, but I'd hear them talk about how anxious their kiddos are, how they're melting down at home and just struggling. And I would genuinely try to help. And here's what it would look like and sound like. I would say, "Oh, they're good news. They're smiling here at school." But knowing what I know now, that was pretty dismissive, and that didn't really get at, or that didn't hear and honor the heart of the families and their struggle. It just and I think probably as a parent now, being on the flip side of that, seeing your own kids thrive and have fun, but also struggle on things. I don't need someone to say, "Oh, they're fine at school," especially if my kiddo at home is telling me, "This is what's really hard," or "This is what I can't tolerate. This is where I'm breaking down and where my anxiety kicks in." It's like we have to partner. And I think now, the fascinating thing, and this is like a not advice, but like a revelation that probably most people are like, "Duh, Brad, could have told you that 20 years ago." But people oftentimes will say what they want. They'll say what they care about. They'll say what they need. Now, sometimes families, they ask for things that we can't do, or they ask for the best thing that they're aware of, but they don't know all the other options we have. But
Hmm.
anyway, at the heart of that is people will communicate kind of what they're struggling with usually. And I just am, what I've learned, or the mistake that I made is I don't think I always heard at a level. I wasn't on their wavelength. I think I was on, like, a school wavelength, or maybe a Brad wavelength.
Hmm. Brad, I love that. And I'm going to transition to something here because I believe whether it was that story or was the one that was similar. And when you say I listened differently, right? And then how you explained it, what I heard, at least what you were trying to portray there, was it's almost like you listen now as a partner, not just as oh, I'm just here saying, oh yeah, everything's fine, but you're really invested in what they were saying, almost like a partner would. That was where your level of caring was. And this is a good transition because for our audience, I want to talk a little bit about the fact that Brad is still a current practitioner. And as you heard, Brad is also an author, not once, not twice, but at least 3 times, and maybe even in other ways that I'm not aware of. But I know your recent book, The 6 Literacy Levers, right? You talked a little bit about sitting at that table a little bit. And so the fact that you're able now to go out and work with schools and work with other leaders and work with staffs, especially around literacy, I want you to talk a little bit about that for our audience, because I think it's really important for them to hear just how I'll be honest, that book inspired me because I want to go back and say, you know what, I could learn something from that, because I think that's one of the biggest challenges for school leaders is to see themselves as a literacy leader in their schools, right? Talk to us a little bit about that journey and how that has now transformed in some of the work you're doing with schools. You're out speaking, you're writing, you're doing some other things. You've got all these things going on where you're trying to help, not just leaders, but educators across the country in this whole idea of let's help us understand the need for being that literacy leader. And talk to us a little bit about the 6 literacy levers.
Great. Thanks, Jimmy. The book was written for really anyone in a school who is willing to own their role, own their influence in raising readers and creating the conditions where kids learn how to read and that they actually want to read, because one without the other is pretty pointless. Okay. So here's what it's all about. My posture as a literacy leader 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, I don't know, it wasn't active. I think I thought that I was doing right by our readers, and I've come to learn that I was more like neutrally positive, if you will. Like if and I kind of mentally delegated the role of literacy leadership probably to teachers, kind of sort of, or our media specialist or our literacy interventionist, when in reality kids also need all the leaders in a school to be invested in this, because only through working together can we ensure that each and every kid walks out of here knowing how to read and wanting to read. So through just recognizing my posture had to change like that, a lot of the book actually shares and kind of was born from, I guess, failures, shortcomings, things that were not effective and didn't serve all kids well. I mean, they might have, some of what I was doing obviously worked for some kids, but I think we signed up to help every single kid walk away from our school as a reader. So quick example, I used to take great pride in our staff lounge. We had someone, just very talented person in the district, make this massive Scrabble wall. So it had all these words about our school and culture, like collaboration, students, making, reading was one of the words. And I forget some of the other ones. And I thought, this is so awesome. This is who we are. And it's who people said we were. The problem is, and this is like a microcosm, I think the extent of my literacy leadership was that word reading on the wall. Like, we love reading here. Well, what does that actually mean in a classroom? And the variability between classrooms, if we don't ever challenge ourselves to have deeper conversations about practices that are potentially damaging to kids and readers, that's a really big deal. And whose job is it to facilitate that? Well, it's all of ours, but if it's not happening on its own or organically, like that's what I get paid to do. That's part of what I get paid to do, is help us grow. And if I'm not willing to own my own role, or if I see myself as a leader, like I think for a long time, my identity, as I told myself, was forged in trying to be more relational, trying to lead technology and innovation and things like that. And those are important, but it can't be an either or thing. It's got to be a both and thing. And once I got that figured out and realized that literacy, it's not either, I'm not a reader or a soccer player. I'm not a reader or a ping pong player. I'm not a reader or a mathematician. Like, kids need to see both. They need to see a principal who loves to play in the gym, but also who loves to pick up a book. So I went on a tangent there, Jimmy, but that's kind of the metamorphosis and what the book was born from. So then when I get to connect with other educators and talk, a lot of the stories are, here's what I did wrong and why I thought it was right at the time. Here's what would have helped me. And and now here's the result or the actual impact once I applied the learning.
Yeah, that's awesome. Brad, if people wanted to get a hold of you, what's the website and the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, bradgustafson.com has like everything.
Just everything there, bradgustafson.com. That is awesome. Well, hey, listen, one thing you left out there, and I can't believe you left it out. You said that you're this or you're that, or you're this, or you're that. I never heard bass fisherman in there. What happened with that? I mean,
I know, Jimmy, I have a lot of passions. Like my two go-tos these days, bass fishing and pickleball. Have you played pickleball?
Yes. And it's funny because I played pickleball before pickleball was cool, because I can still remember back in 1997, Brad Gustafson, myself and my AD, pickleball champions, intramural champions. I mean, those kids, those seniors who thought they were all that, and and even as a high school principal, I always, any chance I got to play pickleball and PE with the kids, I always played. So I love it.
Yeah, it is the best.
Yeah. It's crazy how that has taken off too. If you go out west, oh my God, there's like pickleball communities. I mean, the whole thing is around pickleball. It's pretty crazy. And the tournaments and everything that exists today for that game is wild.
I follow a couple pickleball hashtags on Instagram. So sometimes I'll get videos of pickleball rallies will come up. And I love how any age, it doesn't matter really anything, as long as you're like to have fun, laugh, but also be competitive. It's this cool mix of that. It's just fun to watch. I could sit and watch people play pickleball as much.
Watch people basketball. So I understand how that is, and I'm still going to get up there one of these days and jump in that boat with you and enjoy that.
We got to get you on the lake. Good times.
Well, Brad, tell us then. As we transition here, tell us a story about a student or a colleague who left an impression on you that you would like to give credit to for helping you become a better teacher, educator, or principal.
All right. I got a couple, but here, one of them that comes to mind is our former media specialist, Linda Gibbons, and then also a fourth grade teacher we had who is in a different role in the district, Julie Kirchner. Like both of them, I just remember I kind of referred to them as my own personal book whisperers, where they would just share and recommend titles. Or if I wanted to recommend books to my own kiddos at home, I would go ask them, what might my kids like? And just their steady, like, they never said this, but now knowing what I know now, I wouldn't be surprised if they're thinking like, Brad, you should read a book every once in a while. And that's what I've started doing. But it's because of, and I want to thank them for kind of their modeling, basically modeling, like, what is it like to be an engaged reader? Because if you want to make a difference in readers' lives, but if your reading life never flows, I mean, there's a disconnect there. They authentically lived it out and graciously shared it, and it just is contagious. And I think that's part of the magic of literacy leadership. You don't have to have all the answers. Just pick up a book and talk about it, everyone. Talk about what you love. Talk about what's hard. Talk about when you don't want to read. Like all the things, and not just PD books, but also like books that are magnetic forces that have an orbit that draw you in. I like to read a lot of kids books, and they call them young adult novels, stuff that our kids read here or middle schoolers read. And then it's been really cool. Without Julie and Linda, I don't think I would have ever had a kiddo come up to me at our school and say, I liked this book. What should I read next? Like that has started to happen right now. And that's not a gift I could give. That was something that someone gave me. And now I'm able to kind of pass it on. So.
Yeah, loving the 6 literacy levers, Brad, how you talk about one of your colleagues who carries a book with them around campus, right? And just talks about it, right? And kids are curious what they're reading, and they can talk about that passion for reading. So
yeah, and that's one of the biggest things. And that obviously I care immensely about this. That's why I keep talking about it. But like finding like I used to think I got to feel like reading to read, or I need a 3-hour chunk of time and then I'll be a reader for that time and really plow through a book. But the more that I read and enjoy it and learn, like a 5-minute chunk is really cool. And then if you have a book and before an appointment or, oil change or whatever the case may be, like those are precious minutes. And if you have a book that you really love, you'll use them in that way instead of,
yeah.
Like if this is all you carry around, guess what you're going to be reading, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but if we're never reading books, but yet we're telling kids they should read books. Like
Yeah.
kids can smell a rat.
Yeah. Good for you. That's awesome. Hey, Brad, so can you share with our audience a mantra or a quote that you try to model on a daily basis? Because I love quotes. I love mantras. So I love myself.
Yeah. Mine's more at this stage of my life, it's more of like an idea, and it's just gratitude. So sometimes when I go to bed, I'll just think about like it's just a flood of gratitude. People, small memories, big memories. When I wake up, I try to think about that and just be thankful and look for those things. And then in the moment, try to appreciate them when they're happening. This weekend, my daughter and I don't know how it happened, Jimmy, but she
I
spent like,
saw it. Oh my God. Talk a little bit about that, because I
yeah.
saw that, but I want more of the story of that. I saw it. So tell me more.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just said, I don't know how. We were talking about darts. We play darts every once in a while, and the dart cabinet is a mess. I'm like, hey, we should build dart holders, and kind of piqued her interest. And I know she's a people person. That's her love language. So I go to her, can you commit to an hour? Because I didn't want to start a project and 5 minutes later have her be like, I'm done with you, Dad. Well, Jimmy, 5+ hours later, and she was with me and loving it and in the zone. And she never before had she done this, but she's using all my power tools, everything. And some of them, she's like, I can't do this, Dad. I'm like, you can. And we did it together. It was so cool. And then we painted these things, but we made these dart holders, and she made one and I made one, and now our darts are organized. But it was like, that's a moment, or a 5-hour moment, that it wasn't a trip. It wasn't really spending money. It was just hanging out together. And like, I'll carry that with me to my grave. I love it.
In your garage and just,
yeah. And Jimmy, so I've wrote about this before. One of my favorite things has always been like spending time in the wood shop. You got the sawdust in the air, so you smell that fresh pine dust or whatever. And then you got your favorite song on. Like for me, it's magical to have her for the first time ever be next to me, experiencing that. Like she was commenting without me, talking about the smell that she loved. I'm like, oh my God, you're speaking my language. Then she said, Dad, can we put some Kenny Chesney on? I'm like, oh my God, I love you. It was the best. But anyway, it's just gratitude. And then when I'm off kilter, Jimmy, or when I'm struggling, or when I'm worried about subs, I think if I can go back to that place and be like, well, what is it about this situation, as horrible as it is, that I can appreciate, or what blessings are woven into that. So that's the mantra. That's the I don't know, the habit.
Yeah, we've all been given an abundance of blessings, right? We just don't see them sometimes. So I had no idea that Brad Gustafson had a makerspace right there in his garage, but look at that. Just like that. Makerspace. So those are precious moments, my friend. I am so glad you had that opportunity with your daughter, because that I can see it right now. And it's just amazing. So, and I can hear it in your voice right now. So Brad, we're here to the end, believe it or not. Just give us one final thought you would like to leave our audience with today, my friend.
Yeah, I would say that you don't have to change the world. You don't have to have a grandiose mega plan or initiative or something that took hours and weeks and months to build and bake. You can show up imperfectly and make a difference in a second, in 2 seconds, in 10 seconds. And just by modeling, whether it's just sharing a little bit about your reading life, or showing up humble, or saying sorry when you need to say sorry to someone. I mean, all those little things matter. So never feel, I shouldn't say never feel overwhelmed, but don't stay caught if you are feeling overwhelmed, because we all get that. Just the little tiny things you do, they really do make a difference. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but when it's authentic and when you really care, and when you're humble enough to mention that you really messed it up or hurt somebody, like really good things can grow out of that.
Yeah, I really love that authentic piece, Brad, and there's no better model than that of authenticity than you, my friend. So thank you so much for sharing that. Hey, I want to thank our audience members for spending the time with us today here on the summer edition of the weekly show with Jimmy and Joe. And look at Joe. Doesn't he look amazing? No, it is not Joe. We're going to give a shout out to our special guest today, Dr. Brad Gustafson. We would love it if you would like or would subscribe to our YouTube channel at the Weekly Show with Jimmy and Joe, or give us a like if you enjoyed today's show with Brad. If you have a question or problem of practice that you would like us to respond to, please email your question to us at weekly show, Jimmy and Joe at gmail.com. We hope to see you again next time. God bless everyone and make it a great day.